All right, it's 5:30. We're going to call the meeting of the Hudson Area Joint Library of Trustees to order. So if we can do a roll call, Tina.
Burning.
Present.
Oppenbarger. Present. Silver.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Peterson.
Present.
Schrock.
Present.
Shaw.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Thank you all.
4-3, the presents have it. No, I'm just kidding. Certification of quorum. So we do have a quorum. We are in compliance with the open meeting laws guided by the state of Wisconsin. Introduction of visitors and guests. So we have lots of guests here. We can go right into citizen comment and you can introduce yourselves then. So we'll go right into citizen comment. And do we have any citizen comments?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah, Robert, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please. Name and where you're from.
I'm Robert
Spell the
Cizik.
name too, please.
Robert Cizik, C-I-Z-E-K, from North Hudson. And I'm here to voice two concerns about the library. One has got to do with the collection, and the other one's got to do with programming. The collection has a number of books. I checked out, well, I put 3 on hold. One was still out. But anyway, there's a number of books in here that I think are quite questionable. I think the library should be a welcoming facility which anybody should be included. What I don't think is that the library should promote ideologies that are actually harmful to people. Students, children, other people can come in here and pick out a variety of books. I picked out 3 of them here, and to me, I wouldn't want my children or grandchildren reading these books. They talk about, the one was on Islam, how good it is. Here's one of the founding fathers, how lousy they were. Here's one on abortion, how great it is. And that's my concern with the collection. I would like to see some of the collection get weeded out. It's just not appropriate. And then the second thing I had for concern was programming. As far as I know, there's no programming here on citizenship, patriotism. There's so much information out there about what it takes to become a good citizen, and I couldn't find it here. I think the schools are doing a very poor job of teaching this, and I think our students, actually 1 or 2 generations now, have grown up without knowing hardly anything about what made America great. And so I think the library has a perfect opportunity to do something about that. Some kind of programming that would go on regularly, just to teach students especially about programming, about the original intent of why America was made like it was made, why the founding fathers designed our government, and where the sources of information came from. That would be, I think, very helpful to the community. That's my 2 concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any other comments?
I have a comment that I kind of like to go on the back of Bob, because my name is Suri Lieber. I'm a New Richmond. I'm Suri Lieber, and I'm a New Richmond resident, and I actually will feel better sitting down. And so I'm concerned because you all know, most everybody in this room, Bob is a fine citizen of this community. He has concerns about patriotism, things that, our world is falling apart. People are protesting. We've got China, we've got the Middle East, we've got Ecuador. Just this last week, we've had Bolivia. Corruption, people are fighting back against their countries. Iran's on fire right now because the people are finally standing up and fighting back against their tyrannical leadership, corruption. We have impeachment hearings. These are big concerns in our world, in our communities, in our country. There should be literature in this library that has things on the Constitution, things about what it takes to become a citizenship, your civic duty, volunteer at your local library like Bob did. But what he did as a board member was to ask to put patriotism, founding fathers, the Constitution, maybe talk about the 10 Commandments, whatever. He suggested putting it on an agenda. There was an Albright out campaign to get his resignation down at the town hall in North Hudson, merely for suggesting that he put on an agenda item. Okay, normally in a professional setting like we are right now, you bring it's on the agenda. You, as board members, are going to discuss it. You could have discussed it, but there was a campaign rally, a resistance movement to get his resignation. Stan called him down to the office and told him what was going on, and this fine young gentleman just said, okay, I'll resign. That should not happen in this community. This man should have been able to come to this table as a board member of this library that was assigned by Stan Wickham in North Hudson. He should have had that right to come here and ask for an agenda item. And that this library and employees and even maybe board members were in on it. That's terrible. And I think you owe it to this fine man here to make it an agenda item now in the future. That's what I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Suri. Any other comments?
Darla Myers, St. Joseph Township. I've given, if you haven't received our brochure, there's lots of questions in there. Hopefully some others will be able to ask them. I have some other issues I'd like to raise. Actually, it's something new because I talked to Barbara a little bit out in the parking lot and she was very upset. This was misinformed. I asked her if she would read it and she said no. I said, will you guarantee that there will never be drag queen story hours here? And she obfuscated and she said, define it. I said, will you guarantee it will not be at this library? She handed it back and she walked away. Another fine gentleman sitting here said, that shit has never been here. And I said, it may not be, but we would like to have it in writing that it will never be. He said that has never been here. I have walked over to the children's library to pick out this book. This is called It's Perfectly Normal. There are very graphic depictions of sexual deviancy in this book. Yes, this is in this library. And there's a companion book to this also. Now there's other questions that I have regarding the foundation. I received a solicitation. I was wondering, regarding the foundation, how do they get the information to send out their solicitations? I know they're a nonprofit. This is a government agency, but I'm just curious as to how that information is shared. But I think I'll start with some of these questions to get them on the record, just so we have it. And I did find out that it was going to be recorded, which is good. Number one, are your potential guests thoroughly vetted with background checks, including criminal convictions, charges, and restrictions? Where will these programs be conducted if you have it and if you allow it? What protections will be in place for those members of the library who want to use the facilities but not be exposed to offensive programs exhibitors, and material. One other conversation I had out in the parking lot, the children's librarian, she was kind enough to take it, and she said, "Oh, honey, this will never happen here." And I said, "Will you put that in writing?" And she said, "Our librarian would not allow this to happen here." I asked again, "Will you put it in writing?" Verbal doesn't cut it. We want policies in place to prohibit this kind of sexual deviancy in this library. And I have a printout of many of the articles you've probably seen. I'd like to give that to Tina or Paul, if you would pass it around. And I'd like this book to stick around for you to see what's in the children's library already.
Pass that to me, Jim.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Darla. Any other comments? Yes.
I'm Diane Yoakum, last name Joachim, I live in Richmond. And I just have some questions, and with all the things that are going on across the river, and we like to say, okay, this will never happen in Hudson, Wisconsin. Well, you look at what's happening in Wisconsin, you know, people are moving here by the droves, they enjoy the community, they want to get away from some of the crazy things that are going on in the cities. And I understand that. But with people coming into Hudson, so does some of the craziness. Okay, to say that this will never happen, I think it's sticking our head in the sand. Because it will happen somehow. And so one of my questions is, and I've talked to Paul quite a bit about this too, and why do I care? First of all, this is my community too, even though I live in New Richmond. I've been in business in Hudson for 29, almost 30 years now. And I care about what happens in Hudson. And I care about what happens in the library, because that affects our children, all of our children, and our grandchildren. And I agree with Bob in making sure that we have a balance of patriotism, conservative values, biblical values. I don't care what you want to call it, but what happens is we get so involved in trying to be politically correct that we forget that this country was founded on basic core values. And we need to help promote that to our children as well. And one of the things that my question is, how is it that the library promotes diversity and inclusiveness, yet persons wishing to present certain conservative values or presentations are blocked? Sometimes even rooms are not available at a convenient time if you let people know what's going to happen in those rooms. But in another area, if somebody comes in professing they're going to, whatever, teach yoga or maybe teach core values of how to become a citizenship, and they go into one of the side rooms, how is that person vetted? How do we know, how does anybody know what's being said they're going to do is actually going to happen? Who checks up on them? Does anybody? Say you have a group of teenage girls in there and they're going to learn how to put on makeup. Do you know that's what's really happening? Is there something else happening? The only thing I'm asking to do is have a policy and a procedure in place so that those events, those programs, those visitors, those storytellers, whoever comes into the library as a guest presenter or speaker has been vetted, background checks, at least references, so that you as a library board are not liable for this. And my understanding is the librarian is one, it's a, what you call it, Paul, sanctioned, yeah, I know you can't answer me, a sanctioned event, okay, sanctioned presentation. Who sanctions that? Does one person sanction that, or does the board approve it? Here's the thing, is that when you leave it up, I've served on boards before, when you leave it up to one person, it puts that person in jeopardy. it puts that person in a real vulnerable situation. Whereas if somebody is hurt, abused, feels offended, feels threatened, whatever, who's it going to come back on? It's not just going to come back on the librarian. It's going to come back on the board. And you as board members are going to be liable. And in this sue-happy society, to think that you're not going to be sued, I think you better think again. So has the board discussed a procedure on vetting people? We'd like to think that everybody's just a good old Joe and they have the best interests of our kids in mind, but that doesn't always happen. So I want to encourage the board to really take a serious look at this. You can say it's never going to happen, but it only takes once. Only takes once for it to happen, and it's going to really put a black mark on this library. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? All right, we're going to close that portion of the agenda. Approve of consent agenda items.
I move.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Presentations by our supporting organizations. So we'll start, Joyce, I presume you're
Yep.
representing the Friends?
Yep, just a couple words about Family Fresh receipts. Dig through your purses, your wallets, please, in your pockets. We are still collecting them, and we're partnering with the Y because they're in the same situation we are. We don't have enough to get $150,000 to earn that $1,000 that Family Fresh Spartan Nash has been so generous in giving us over the years. I think they've already given us like $6,000 or $7,000. So, you know, it's pretty impressive, and it's going to be a big loss. But if you can, like I said, dig through, try to find more receipts. We have a volunteer angel who has been counting them from the Y as well as ours. So we're hoping that together we can make it right and get $150,000 and split the $1,000 with them. So please see if you can do that.
What's the deadline for that?
There's no deadline because River Falls Family Fresh or New Richmond Family Fresh will redeem them in the same way that they did here in Hudson.
So we can use those receipts as well.
And those, thank you, yes, those receipts as well. Yep.
So ask your relatives. And
So those of you that are from New Richmond, please, yeah, go shopping, bring the receipts back, please. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah.
Good.
Joyce, are you in conversations with Pine Market or anything for this, do the same thing?
No, because it's Spartan Nash that actually sponsored it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's no way we can, I mean, it'd be up to them, but I don't think that they're gonna do that.
So,
Yeah.
Joyce, going forward, then, if we shop at a Family Fresh, are any of those receipts still good then?
Yes,
Just-
yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, absolutely, that's what I'm saying, yeah. And we don't have a deadline, we might just wait until we can, between the two organizations, get our $150,000. So, no deadline right now, so, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joyce. Anything from the foundation is Sam?
Well, I'm here, so I'll, let's see, a couple of things since the last meeting. One, our Hogwarts event, which was our social event last month, was a great success. People there just had a great time, a lot of positive comments afterward, and it's just one of those social things that the foundation is sponsoring and encouraging to get people to be familiar with our library, our facility, and feel like it's a place for them to go to enjoy themselves as well as learn. The other thing is that we have now started our campaign for corporate giving and have created a method by which we solicit corporations and businesses in town to make large donations to the library. For $5,000, a business can have a banner hung in our large windows downstairs, and it'll be there for a year. We've already had one or two businesses sign up, and it's our first step in trying to raise money through the business list.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
President's comments, reports, and municipal updates. So we'll start with St. Joe.
I learned this afternoon, and I know Tina already knew, that St. Joe, well, they're actually meeting tonight to approve the budget, but there's a 2% increase in funding for the library on the St. Joe proposed budget, so I'm pretty hopeful. I received positive feedback from the chair when I made my report last Thursday, which was nice to hear. So.
Awesome. How about the town of Hudson? Chris or Marion?
I was at the last town board meeting, really long, but nothing to report regarding the library, just other business, so nothing.
Okay. Anything?
No. It was over 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
All right, glad I wasn't at that. No village update, as our representative is not here tonight. She will be introduced next meeting, my understanding. City of Hudson update. Rich, do you have anything coming from the city?
Yeah, we approved our budget last night. There's a 2% increase, which is also represents a 2.6% increase over our 3-year average.
Okay. And as far as my comments are concerned, I have a lot to say, but I'll say very little. The fact that this is coming, that what is being presented here tonight, not only in public comment, but the Facebook messages and the text messages and the phone calls that I've been receiving over the last 4 days, I gotta say, it surprises me that it's coming to me in this manner and not coming to me directly with a phone call or a sit down or some manner of, I guess, courtesy to the library director and the job that she's done and the job that this board has done in maximizing our return on investment from our taxpayers. The realized tax savings of this area library is in the hundreds of thousands and approaching the 7-figure mark in regarding to what a joint area library means. And when we start chasing ghosts and going after things that don't exist right now, instead of facing the real issues that we have, which is delivering a high quality product to our patrons, 32,000 in population. And for a long time, we had a library that was open for minimal amount of hours, 5 days a week. It's one of the only government agencies to roll their sleeves up and make real cuts over a long period of time while still saving the taxpayers a phenomenal amount of money. And we are just coming into a point where we can be open 7 days a week and be open at 9 a.m. and deliver it at a cost to taxpayers that still, as an area library compared to a municipal library, delivers realized tax savings, and these municipalities get the control. So, when we start chasing ghosts and we send directors on missions that don't exist, you're taking and you don't do it in a manner that when you have an issue with your brother or your sister, you take it to them. I live by a book that tells me to do that. If I have an issue with my brother or my sister, bring it to them. I live by a book that says don't bear false witness. There is no drag queen story hour being discussed. There is no plan of drag queen story hour. And as long as I'm here, we don't plan on having that discussion. That being said, I also, as the president of the board and as an individual in this community, believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, individual freedom and responsibility, and individual liberty. And if somebody comes to me and says, or comes to our library and says, I'd like to dress up as a lady and use one of your rooms, and I want to read to children, we as a library cannot deny them the right to use that room if it is available, period. By denying them would be denying an individual's right and freedom to use a public space that is paid for by tax dollars. Further, if we go into the weeds on this and we start pegging the library as a religious institution or an institution that may or may not be accessible by certain religious groups, by certain creeds, we start to weed into a place where, let's say there is somebody who is not a Christian and they want to go to a place where their spouse or their mom or dad think it's okay for them to go to, and they want to learn about Christianity. They can come to the library and grab a Bible and read it and know that their parents aren't going to think that that is a stronghold for Christianity. Again, I'm a Christian. I will profess my faith till the day I die. But we have to make sure that it's open for that. And on the flip side, if there is someone of a religious background that's trying to escape that, and they have an abusive relationship in any type of religious situation, and that spouse, that husband or wife, wants to come here and learn about Christianity, or they want to learn about a different religion, and they know that if their spouse sees them coming here and it has a religious overtone to it, what do you think is going to happen to that person? So I have a lot more to say, but I just want to say that one last thing, that if you do have any issue or you think something may be going on here at the library, Tina is a very open, and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here, but Tina is open, her door is open, her phone line is open. Come in and talk to her. Talk to me, call me. My number is available. We're open. But we gotta keep this place open, and while there are some maybe legitimate concerns that we can look at, starting battles through the public library is not the means or the place to do so. And those are my comments. On a positive note, we've got the budget ready, and we will be going into that shortly. So, we'll go into director's reports, statistics, and requests for action.
I did send the statistics and reports out. Did anyone have any questions about those? Then I do have one comment that I would like to make. As director, I take my duties seriously. As a steward of public and private funding, I am accountable to the taxpayers and to the donors. 88% of all library funding is provided by grants from the Library Foundation. And the rest of that comes from donations through the Friends of the Library. A minimal, maybe 1% of funding is by taxpayer dollars for our programming. I perform my job with integrity. My door is open for conversation, and I welcome dialogue. If anyone has questions, wants to really know the facts, what the policies are, what guidelines are in place, what procedures my staff follows, whether individuals are required to be licensed and bonded for programming, or if background checks are done, come to me and ask, because they are. I really think it's important to understand the library's mission, and it is to promote educational achievement, literacy, and lifelong learning. Drag queen story time has never been considered, it has never been proposed, and it has never happened. I can't guarantee that after I am gone that it will not happen. I can't guarantee that. I'm pretty sure there's a Bible quote about tomorrow, but I can't guarantee what happens tomorrow. But today, and as long as I am the library director, there are no plans. I understand my community, and I serve this community. And if you have questions, I will say again, please don't bear false witness against me. Come and talk to me. Thank you.
Okay. We have action item for the 2020 budget.
Recommended by Finance Committee.
Finance Committee, you need to recommend it.
Okay, so,
If we voted on it last meeting.
yes, no, at our last, excuse me, Finance Committee meeting, the Finance Committee approved Tina's proposal for budget for 2020, and then all the criteria, all the expectations, actually it exceeded the expectations, and gives us a very bright and rosy picture for going into 2020 for both an educational, a material, and an economic point of view. So for the actual nuts and bolts of it, and the detail,
Okay, so the first sheet I passed around is a summary. I wanted to go through that first. For revenues, the original request approved back in July that we requested to our municipal partners was $917,569. The final request tonight is $904,835. In comparison to our 2019 approved budget, our budget last year was $884,399. This year's budget is a 2.31% increase, which allows us to open at 9 a.m. and provide our staff with a 2% increase. So you can see each of the lines. The personnel increase is 3.87%. That includes the insurance increase through the city, as well as the 2% increase. There is a 23% decrease for contractual services. We will be relying on grants from the foundation and the Friends for programming. So that is much of where that comes from. Supplies and expenses, a 34% decrease. We still have a technology budget, but we are replacing a large number of our computers this year. That's why that budget was so high. Collection, again, we will be relying on the foundation and the Friends to supplement our collection budget. And then the fixed charges went up 1.33%, and that is our lease for the building, which goes up according to CPI. There is room in many of these lines just because what the final numbers for our insurance for that last line, the fixed charges, I believe the city is switching where our insurance comes through, and we are getting a substantial decrease in those numbers. So there'll be a little bit of wiggle room should we need it, depending on, I have not heard from the town of Hudson on their 2% increase. Last I had heard, there would be a 2% increase from North Hudson. So that was the last thing I heard. So 3 out of 4 communities I have heard from. On the 2020 budget, one last thing, I'm sorry. We had projected using $32,140 of our reserves this year. It looks like that will come out to about $10,000, and part of that is due. It would have been about $5,000, but I'm anticipating legal fees associated with an open records request.
$5,000 was the cost of that?
I'm anticipating Kathy has spent a huge amount of time on this. So, not including the amount of time that I have spent on it. So would you like me to go line by line? Have you all had time to review?
I did the finance committee.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do on the revenue side.
Okay.
So we have 4 municipalities, the county levy. What else is included in that?
Library revenues. So did you get this one, Marion?
I just passed it down, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Mary, I didn't see that.
Me?
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine, this answers the question.
Okay. One thing I know that we went fines free and that did reduce our library revenues. But the other part of that is when other libraries went fine free, that also reduced our revenues. So it's not just because we went fines free. It's kind of a cumulative of all libraries or many libraries going fines free. Okay.
Okay, that's it. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2020 budget.
I move that we approve the 2020 budget as proposed.
Okay, motion to approve the 2020 budget as proposed. We got a second?
I will second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
My agenda copy doesn't have this as an agenda item on it.
You should have been well, you should have, I did mail you, and it would have been in a small envelope
Yeah,
because the
pulled the
agenda
mail
was
today.
amended.
Last week.
Last week.
Yeah.
It was mailed last week, Marion.
Maybe a week ago.
All right, I got the regular package.
Okay.
And this went out after,
It was posted.
it was posted, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 2020 budget is passed. All right, notice of closed session. Library Director annual review and evaluation. The Library Board of the Hudson Area Joint Library will meet at approximately 5:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as time permits on Tuesday, November 19th, 2019 in room 219, Hudson Area Public Library, 700 First Street, Hudson, Wisconsin, following the conclusion of consideration of the above portion of its regularly scheduled agenda, to vote on a motion to convene in closed session at said time and place for discussion action relative to 1, conduct the library director's evaluation. A closed session for the above purposes is authorized pursuant to the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, which is allowed for considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific person, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, and 19.851C, which allows governmental bodies to use closed sessions to interview candidates for positions of employment, to consider promotions of particular employees, to consider compensation of particular employees, and to conduct employee evaluations. Upon conclusion of the closed session, the library board will convene an open session to consider its public agenda, including motion to recommend approval or rejection of above listed deliberations or any of the public agenda items that have not been acted upon. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Closed session.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Oh, it's a roll call.
Burning,
Aye.
Offenbarger. Aye. Kilburn,
Aye.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Rock,
Aye.
Shaw.
No.
Okay, going into closed session. We are back into open session. So the evaluation, we're tabling to December.
Yes.
We're moving to December, okay? So we just table that to December.
Okay.
No action taken. But it will be on the agenda in December.
Yes.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Okay? Nobody wants to leave.
I know.
I have a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we finally have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
We want to.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.